Hey guys, Two-Time Marine here with my next Q&A video. There's a shit ton of questions. I'm going to try to go through them relatively quickly so that this video isn't insanely long. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's good. I was happy to see how many questions I got. And I will do my best to answer them. I'm sure that I'll have missed some of them, so if I didn't answer your question, just post it here in the comments down below, and I will do my best to respond to them there. So the first question is, would I go back into the Corps? No. Unless a big war kicks off and they absolutely need guys, then I would. But just right now, I would not. Because my wife, my two boys, I'm going to school, stuff like that, and I'm content where I am. If things kicked off and they absolutely needed me, then by all means I would join. But just on a whim right now, no, I wouldn't. Transition to civilian life. I have a video on this, but just to cover maybe a little more, it's not easy. It's not easy at all for a lot of guys. For me, it wasn't a cakewalk. You still keep a lot of the mannerisms from the Marine Corps. You cuss a lot. You're very vulgar. You, just the way you interact with people is different. Like, you're respectful to people that you know are your superiors, but people that are like your coworkers in the Marine Corps, you can just say pretty much anything you want to them, and they know you're joking. It doesn't offend them. They don't care. But in the civilian world, it's not the case. I have to hold back quite a bit, even now, and I'm closing in on 5 years being out of the Marine Corps, that this summer will be 5 years, where I just need to not say things because people in the civilian world just don't, not to say they're pussies, but they take shit way too personally, and so you need to be very careful. I had an easier time than most adjusting. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that I got a job, a good paying job, pretty much right after I got out. I was out for maybe a month, and I started applying for jobs, and I got an interview for my current job, and I got hired over like 400 or 500 people. There's a lot. And so that made it a lot easier because I didn't have the stress of trying to find work, trying to make sure my bills were paid. I just didn't have that stress. And for a lot of guys, that can be huge, and that can be a huge detriment. The thing that I've struggled with the most, I would say, is outside not being overly vulgar to civilians, is not being around my Marine buddies. It's a level of trust that you really don't get anywhere else. I have those guys, no matter what happened, I can trust them for anything. Like, then, with my Marine Corps friends, I knew that if we were to go to a mall somewhere, and some dickhead we didn't carry weapons out in the civilian world when we were in the Marine Corps. But I know that if some dickhead walked into that mall we were in there and started shooting, that my Marine buddies would not fucking run and hide. They'd be right there with me, and we'd figure out a way to take that dickhead down. In the civilian world, you just don't have that trust. There is people that won't back down, that will do what needs to be done, but you just don't inherently know that. And with my Marine Corps buddies, I did know that, and there was never any concern whatsoever that I could trust them with anything. So for me personally, that was the most difficult part. I think it is for a lot of the guys that have served, is just not having that day-to-day contact with your buds is huge. Like, it almost got to the point for us where, and I know for me and a lot of the other guys too, where we actually, going home on leave was fun, but you just prefer to be around Marines. And so you looked forward for leave to be done so that you can go back and hang out with your friends. And I know it was like that for me. I know even a couple of the Marines who, followed my channel and have already gone to boot camp and graduated have said the same thing. It's like, hey, I'm on boot leave, but fuck, man, I want to go back and hang out with my friends, go, continue their journey in the Marine Corps. And that seems to be the case for a lot of guys. And yeah, I don't know, for me and for a lot of guys, that is the sorry, looking up something. That is the main thing, the main difficult aspect of it. Give me 1 second here. So the next question is the Commandant versus the General of the Army, which is like a comparison between them two. And you really can't necessarily compare those two because they haven't had the fuck's the word? Holy balls. General of the Army, there you go. For a long time. A long time. But basically the Commandant is in charge of everything in the Marine Corps. He is responsible for everything that every single Marine does. So if a Marine goes out and guns down a bunch of people for no reason, he's responsible. If Marine... Now, the Commandant doesn't actually deal with combat things. Like, he doesn't go and set up strategies for, say, if we were to go back and to take down Baghdad again, for instance. He's not there in the planning on how to do that. There's other generals that is their job to do, not his. I mean, the Commandant, I'm sure, could be there and could provide some insight, but it's not his decision. The Commandant mainly focuses on the, I guess, more of the administrative side of things. He talks to the president. He's part of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He'll interact with all those guys and stuff like that. The General of the Army, I actually didn't really know a ton about him, but basically that only comes about during a time of war, a major war, and basically he will control other armies as well. He can't control other armies. Generally, they will control every branch of service in the military. They will try to read, because I really didn't know the whole time. I knew they existed, obviously, but I didn't really know the full deal of it. And they're basically in charge of the fucking whole thing. So 5 generals that were awarded it during World War II in the Korea time is George Marshall, Douglas MacArthur, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Henry Arnold, and then Omar Bradley. And Omar Bradley was the last one to be given that rank. And it's just something you really don't see. We haven't had one since then. So, and when did he stop being it? Around 1950, I think. But yeah, or 52. I don't know. Somewhere in there. But it's totally different things. The General Army does focus on combat things from what I can see here. That is their goal, is to fucking destroy the enemy. While the Commandant does not. He focuses on the administrative side of things. But he comes up with all the new rules in the Marine Corps. And essentially he's a god. When the Commandant's around, you will know it. You will be made very aware of that. Getting a cold or something. The next question, sorry to drag that out a little bit. The next question is, can you bring personal weapons on deployment? No, you cannot. This isn't like World War II anymore, where I know a lot of those guys would, have personal pistols and stuff sent to them or whatever. You cannot bring any sort of personal weapons. You can have knives, but in terms of firearms, you cannot. The only firearms you will have are what are issued to you. I was asked to kind of delve into getting fit a little bit, and I've been thinking about this. The best way to do it, I almost want to make my own video on it, another video on it, and maybe I will. Still, but for the purpose of this, it's going to be dependent on where you are at this moment. But the best advice that I can give you is to push yourself as far as you possibly can, obviously without getting hurt or dying, every single time you work out. So, for instance, for me, and just be consistent with it. Like for me, and I've told this before, but when I was in high school, right after I signed up for the Marine Corps, I thought the only way that the Marine Corps allowed you to do pull-ups is palms out. So you're using a lot more of your back to do pull-ups. Just for whatever reason, I thought that that's how you had to do it. And they accept both ways, obviously, but for whatever reason, that's how I thought it was supposed to be done. So I went and I tried some, and I could only do like 3 or 4. And I knew to get like max points on the PFT, you have to do 20 of them. And so I just started working at it. I would start off just doing, basically every day I would go, and whenever I went by like the gym, because our gym in my high school had pull-up bars in it, I would just go in there and I would pull up as many times as I could. So initially it was only 3 or 4 or 5, and I would do that. If I had some time, I would shake it out, give it a minute or two, and then jump back on and do as many as I could again. And then the next time I'd walk by, I'd do the same thing. When I was in gym class or in weights or whatever, I would just do a whole bunch. And eventually I got to the point where it slowly went up. And, I could do 10, then I could do 15, then I could do 20. And the most I ever got, I think, was 28 or 29, somewhere in there. And it was just through practice. I would literally go, and when I had more time, like for instance during gym or weights, I would do as many as I could. So for instance, say 10, and then I would drop off, shake out, do as many as I could again, which maybe if I was lucky I could get 10 again, but generally not. I'd get 9, and then drop down, shake it off, and just do it again over and over and over until I literally could not pull myself up. And I would do that every single day that I had school. And for me, the same thing applied to running. I would go out and just run, 2 miles, and then the next day do 2 miles. A lot of this was dependent on my wrestling coach, what he wanted to do. But I'll just run almost daily. And once I feel like, because say, like for me, like right now, if I were to go try to run 2 miles, I could do it, but it would whoop my ass. So what I've been doing is I'm just going to run 2 miles over and over until every day until it's not very difficult for me. Like I can finish it relatively quickly, and I can finish it where I'm not super out of breath. And then I'll bump it up to 3, and then run that until I'm feeling pretty good, and then bump it up to 4, and then 5, and so on. And for me, that works, and that applies to anything, whether it's push-ups, pull-ups, running. I would just every single one of them, you push yourself until your body says no. And the thing is you have to know. 1, you have to know your limits, but 2, you have to know what your limits actually are, in the sense that you want to keep pushing yourself, but not, 1, not to the point where you die, because that would suck, but 2, you're going to get tired, and your body's going to hurt, and you're going to want to quit, but that's not actually your limit. That's just your mind telling you to stop, because your mind's a big pussy, and you can actually push yourself harder if you dig deep and really go. And that's what you need to find. That's what you need to figure out about yourself. And it's different for everybody. But once you find that, and once you know, and that's the thing about boot camp, is they're going to push you, and you're going to hit your limit, or what you think is your limit. And you're going to be like, nope, I can't do this anymore. My body's giving up. My body is saying, fuck you, I don't want to do this. And you have to just keep going. And they will make you keep going. And the drill instructors are very good at making sure you're not going to hurt yourself, that you're not actually going to keel over and die, but they are going to push you way more than you've ever been pushed before. And once you find that, and once you understand what that feels like, you'll be golden, because then you'll know how much you can keep going and how much you can keep pushing. So yeah, I'll make a video maybe with some sweet using my sweet paint skills to kind of delve into this a little more. But for me, that's what it was, is consistency and pushing myself to where my body would literally not pull myself up or would not do another crunch, would not do another push-up. And I would do that every single day. And for me, it worked. And it worked quite well. So that's my advice on that. And I will do another video on that. Let me write it down on the old phone. Fitness video. Okay, next one. Sorry, a long video, Jesus. Is FDC versus the section chief. Basically, what are their job roles? I was a section chief, which in artillery means that I was in charge of a howitzer. Anything and everything that happened on that howitzer was my responsibility. If Marines got hurt, if Marines did well, if Marines broke something, if we shot out and killed some infantry, if we shot out and just hurt anybody or destroyed equipment, it was my fault. And so my duties were generally to oversee everything and ensure that the correct round and powder and everything was being used and the fuse on the round, and then that the gun was pointed in the right direction, basically. That's a very general statement, I guess, but I don't want to really dive into the specifics of it at the moment, but that's what I did. And so for every single round that we fired, and I fired thousands upon thousands of rounds, every single round I had to check personally, make sure that the round is the correct round we're supposed to be using, make sure the fuse is correct, make sure the time on the fuse, if there is a time, is correct, make sure the powder is good, is the correct charge, make sure that the gun is pointed exactly where it needs to be pointed, and then I would give the command to fire whenever I was told to fire. And that's what I did. I absolutely loved it. For me, it's one of the best jobs in the Marine Corps. When I first became a section chief, I was 20. And so 20 years old, responsible for, depending on how many people you have on your gun, but 12 to 15, sometimes less, generally less. But there was times when we had 15 guys, and then in charge of 2 7-tons, which are the trucks, the howitzer itself, and everything, all the equipment on the gun, and then everything downrange that I shot was my responsibility. And for a 20-year-old, being in charge of that many people and that much money, it's just millions and millions of dollars. It's kind of a cool thing, to say the least. The FDC, they're the ones that tell us where to point the guns. They do all the math. They figure all that shit out. There's a bunch of different roles in there, and I don't really know the roles specifically well, but if they don't do their job right, people are dying. The same as me, but they're the ones that actually figure out the math, and they do all that. They figure out how the wind's going to affect the round. They figure out the curvature of the earth if you're shooting far enough. They're figuring out the earth rotating, how that'll affect the round. Anything and everything that can affect the round, they take into account and they adjust for. It's pretty cool, actually, all the stuff that they get to do, or that they have to deal with to make sure everything's correct. It's a lot of work. It's a cool job. I just preferred being down on the gun line. And for me, that was the fun thing, is being down there, actually shooting, pulling the landing on the gun, making it fire. That's what I enjoyed doing. Nothing against them by any means. It was a cool job, but I just prefer the gun line. All right, on to the Facebook questions. Let's see. I had a bunch written down from some videos that people had asked. So let's see. How to rank up before you join the Marine Corps. There's a few ways. One is getting 15 credits in college while you're in high school or before you join. So you can do like a running start type program. If you've already graduated high school, you can do 15 credits at college. You can join some of the JROTC things. Like for me, I did the Young Marines, and I had to get sergeant in that, and I did, and so I was able to get PFC at boot camp. And those, I'm sure someone's going to correct me, but those are the two I can think of offhand that will get you PFC before you join. So, yeah. All right, let's see. What are the pros and cons of joining infantry? The pros is if there's somebody that needs to be killed, that needs to be destroyed because they're threatening the U.S. way of life, you will be there. That is your job. You're the frontline guy. Infantry are out there kicking in doors, doing that sort of thing. So if that entices you, then that's a huge pro. One of the cons, they get treated like shit almost their entire time, especially if you're a boot infantry. It's rough. It's not easy. You were bottom of the barrel. Another con is you have to walk fucking everywhere. Grunts walk. So if you're not a fan of walking, maybe infantry is not for you. Is there any way to fail boot camp? It's almost to the point of saying no, because they will basically force you to succeed, to pass. Some of the ways you technically can fail, though, is if you try to kill yourself, if you get seriously injured to the point where you're not going to be able to train anymore, then you're done. You can fail to adapt, which is basically failing, like, say, the rifle range fucking 30 times, but it's almost impossible to do that. But technically there is. They can give you failure to adapt for a lot of things, but it's usually something like that with, like, the rifle range. But it's really tough because they push you until you succeed. Why did I pick my MOS? I was seriously considered infantry, and if I had to go back and do it again, I would do infantry. But I picked my MOS because at the time, I just did not feel like fucking walking everywhere with all that gear. It's like, you know what? I still want to do a combat job, but without all the walking. So I went combat support. So I could have been a tanker, AAV, all sort of stuff, and I just ended up getting artillery. How long can you get leave for? Leave is usually 2 weeks before deployment and then a month after deployment. Not always, but that's more or less what it is. For me, I could not get leave outside that unless there's a family emergency. That may change because what do I want to say? Because the wars are pretty much done, but it was usually either 2 weeks or a month. And can you apply for another job while in the Marines? Yes, you can work a second job. Like I knew some guys that worked on the weekends. But like if you're infantry or artillery, you're not going to get another job because generally you're in the field on the weekends, and so you can't reliably be there at that job on the weekends. So in terms of like applying for another job before you get out, yes, you can. Unless your command's really nice, you will not be able to go there for an interview. So you may have to do like one over Skype or something, but you can apply for other jobs. Your command may let you go. Like the question here is like a written exam for the NYPD. They may let you go, but there's no guarantees. You just have to talk to your command and see what they're comfortable with. Is there anything I wish I would have done differently? Pretty much the only thing is I would have done infantry. There's really nothing else that I'd recommend that you guys do differently than I did. The main thing is to really pick a job that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, that you know that you just absolutely are pumped for. Because you can always do a skill-related job afterwards. Get the fun stuff out of the way, what you consider fun, do that first, and if you want to re-enlist, you can do re-enlist for another job. And since I've got out, I've been pretty lucky, I'm going to school, and I definitely recommend you guys go to school if you get out. It's very, very important. There's really not a ton different I would do that I can recommend you guys, just outside picking a job that you want to do. Next question. What are my views of women in combat MOSs and special forces? I don't think that women should be doing that. Not that there aren't women that can't do that, but there are not enough women that are capable of doing it I think, to warrant all the effort that's going to go into it. All the time and money and energy that's going to be spent figuring out how to make this work, I don't think is worth it. One, I don't think there's enough women out there that are physically capable and mentally capable of doing it. But two, I just don't think there's enough women that want to do it, that really honestly want to do it. Female Marines will fight when it comes down to it. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of making their one and only job, infantry or special forces guys, is just not, frankly, not worth the time. And that's no disrespect whatsoever to female Marines, but the majority of female Marines I know think it's stupid that they're putting so much effort into making female Marines into, or letting them do combat MOSs. It's just a huge waste of time, frankly. But you get all that equality and shit, and whatever. People are gonna bitch about it. Where are the next questions? Here we go. Let me see. All the places where I was stationed. My actual duty station was 29 Palms, California. I went for deployment, we went to Okinawa, Japan. I was on Camp Hansen there. There's like 8 or 9 camps there. Or there were. I mean, they're getting rid of a lot of the military on the island, so I don't know what's left. And then we went up to Mount Fuji. There's a Marine Corps base at the base of Mount Fuji, and we did a lot of shooting up there. When I went to Iraq, I've been to Kuwait. In Iraq, we were all over. We were in a place called Barwana, which is just south of, about half an hour south of the Haditha Dam. Spent a lot of time at the dam and around the dam. Went all the way up to Lake Tartar for submissions. That place is, it's so cold. It's so cold. And then we went I went up to Rawa, which is towards the northern end of the country. And then we drove down the last chunk of the time in Iraq, we were down in Arupa, which is just a hellhole of a city, down in the south, kind of near the Syrian border. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all the place I was stationed, I believe. I did some time in Camp Pendleton for a Section Chief school. That base is nice as balls. The worst job I did? I mean, it really was no worst job. Having to dig 50 cal pit in blacktop in 29 Palms is horrible. Because it's literally like digging into asphalt. And yet you have every time, because for artillery, every time that you move your gun and you set your gun up, you have to dig a 50 cal pit or a crew serve pit for whatever crew serve your gun has. And trying to dig into that cement it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Is it worth it? Yes. I wouldn't, replace anything I did in the Marine Corps. It was all worth it. Absolutely. If I could have joined the Marine Corps, what branch would I have joined? I would have loved to do the Navy SEALs. At the time when I joined, I really didn't know a ton about them. Otherwise, chances are I probably would have gone SEALs instead of Marine Corps. But for that, you have to join the Navy as some other job, and then you go to the Navy or to SEAL training. And the reason why they have you do another job is because if you fail Navy or SEAL training, which the majority of people do, you can go back to your other MOS. What did I miss out on coming home? Maybe I'm reading this weird. I really wasn't a fan of coming home. There's really nothing here for me. I had to see my family and stuff, which is great, don't get me wrong, but the majority of the people here back at home that I went to high school with and stuff are just not worth my time. A lot of them just fucking lazy bastards. Some of them are great people, and I still hang with them now, but the majority were not. So coming back home really wasn't a big deal for me. Do people look at me differently? Yes, and especially here in where I live. I'm right across the river from Portland, Oregon, and that's just a huge hippie liberal town, and that was always interesting. What was MLS school like? Very, very cold. I got to MLS school in the beginning of November of 2005, and if you've ever been to Oklahoma in the winter, it gets fucking cold. Very, very cold. And so we were out there constantly in, 5-degree weather, doing training, working on the howitzers, whatever. The school was fun. Like, it was as much fun as you could possibly have, I guess, in MLS school. But it was always cold. How much do the artillery rounds weigh? They are, give or take, 100 pounds each one. And so the guy that loads the rounds into the howitzer gets very strong very fast. So if you want to get strong, definitely be the loader if you're in artillery. Let me see. Would I want to redeploy? Yes, absolutely. Deploying was the most fun I had in the Marine Corps. I absolutely loved it. If I could be deployed the entire 4 years, I would. What's a NAM? A NAM is Navy Achievement Medal. It is, you can get it for quite a few things. Hold on. Sorry, it's the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal. My bad. You get it for a bunch of stuff. It's usually for some sort of, you did something in a leadership capacity. You basically went above and beyond your job. They can also be awarded for stuff in combat. Like, so for instance, if say your squad leader gets hit and is down for the count, you take over and get the job done until somebody can replace you. Stuff like that. It's a good medal to have, but you can get it for a lot of administrative stuff back in the rear. It just kind of depends. Yeah. What MLS should you choose when you enlist? That really comes down to you, man. It'll probably be peacetime for you guys, hopefully, but it's whatever you consider to be fun is the best advice I can give. So if that's infantry, do that. If you like administrative work, if that just for whatever reason is fun to you, do that. What about shaving rules? You have to shave every single day. If you come down, this is general Marine Corps. If you're Special Forces, they have their own rules with that. But if you're just a normal, everyday Marine, you have to shave every single day. You can get shave chits if you get some really, really bad razor burn. But one, it has to be really, really bad. And two, not to be racist, but the only people I ever saw get an actual shave chit where they didn't have to shave were black guys. For whatever reason. Maybe they just get razor burn more than anybody else, or they're more susceptible to it, but they're the only ones I ever seen get it. Because I would get razor burn, and they would just tell you to fucking suck it up. Camel spiders are horrible. I hate them. How's that? Absolutely hate them. If you don't know what a camel spider is, just YouTube it or Google it, and you'll see. Left-handed, right-eye dominant. Yes, shooting will probably be difficult. You need to try and force yourself to be left eye, to be able to use your left eye. So if you need to go take a 22 out and just practice with that since you're left-handed, then I'll do that. If you're able to switch to your right hand to shoot, then maybe do that. If you can, whichever way is easiest for you. But try and make one of those work for you. Did the Marine Corps change? Last question, last two questions. Did the Marine Corps change my personality? It won't change for most people who join. Yes. It makes you more aggressive, and not so much in the sense that you're just going to fucking throat punch the first person you see, walking down the street, but it gives you the confidence to know that you can handle yourself in different situations where some people might run, from a fight or something. Marines don't do that. If someone wants to throw down, you throw down. You just become very confident in your abilities. Most of the guys that I know generally don't like people afterwards. You just have a general distrust of people. It's, one, you can't trust them, as I talked about earlier, but two, I don't know. It's just after deploying, after going to Iraq and seeing what people can do, you just don't like being in crowds. I don't know. It's difficult to describe. I just generally am not a fan of people. They just irritate me. I don't like being around them, and I know, and that applies to a lot of my friends as well. But I mean, most guys, in the end, it comes down to how you deal with it. Some people are perfectly fine. Some people have a rougher time with it. It's all an individual thing, and a lot of times you can't predict it. It's just how your body is made to deal with these different things. What's a normal day in boot camp? You'll get up fucking early as balls. You will go eat. Generally, they will have you go to a class or something, maybe go back and clean up the squad bay, and then you go work out. And then it's just generally classes or general hazing the rest of the day, constantly running you around, ITing you, doing stuff in the barracks. But it's a lot of classes. You're going to do a shit ton of those over anything and everything. And then you'll eat lunch, more or less around noon. And then more classes, more training until dinner time. You go eat for that. And then you go back into your squad bay and dawdle around there until it's time to go to bed. And you do the same thing the next day. It's obviously a little dependent if what phase you're in, but that's more or less what you'll be doing. So, yeah. Alright, it's a fucking long-ass video, huh? 37 minutes, more or less. I really appreciate you guys' questions, and I want to try to do these probably once every 2 months is my goal for the year, where I'll just get a big pile of questions and answer them like this. So be looking forward to that. If I didn't answer your questions, if I missed it somehow, let me know. Ask me on Facebook, or ask me in the comments here, and I'll answer it. And yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. Once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do the video log, showing you guys what I look like, and then as well as breaking down my AR, just kind of showing you the parts with that. So yeah. Yeah, alright guys. I appreciate you watching. It's 1 in the morning and my fucking dog is snoring like a bastard. You guys can probably hear him in the background there. So yeah. If you guys have any questions or anything else, hit me up. And I will see you in the next one. Semper Fi.